Hey. In the previous video with school stories I talked about nerds. In this one I'd like to touch on the opposite type, school bullies.
I'm about to break your finger, you four-eyed fool.
School bullies are usually seen as these dumb, rough, cocky basta ham guys who most often pick up their manners from troubled parents. The stereotypical bully is a gopnik in the literal sense of the word. But modern realities have forced even these baboons to evolve. If in the lower grades the hierarchy makes you obey whoever is simply stronger, then as you get older, brute force alone is no longer enough. Accordingly, bullies are divided into leaders and lackeys. The former, as a rule, acquire at least some intelligence and manners, clean themselves up, while the latter, lacking any particular skills and unwilling to develop, fade into the background and eventually risk being left on the sidelines of life altogether. On the internet, the term bidlo is widely used to describe such people. I'm almost certain that in every class there's some kind of leader, a sort of schoolyard crime boss, along with 2 to 4 of his lackeys. This crew doesn't always rule by fear. It all depends on the region where your school is located and how prosperous it is. From some place like Ust-Zajopinsk, where the leader might be your typical gopnik, the nightmare of every quiet nerd to big cities, where the school community, in addition to strength and assertiveness, will also expect the leader to have intelligence, ambition, and at least a decent appearance. In other words, qualities that are usually out of reach for the typical stairwell dweller and beer can emptier. And this is where things get really interesting. The leader turns out to be a somewhat cocky but also flexible and easygoing guy, someone who can bring both the dumb thugs and the indecisive nerds under his wing. In my class, the most popular guy was exactly this type. Nothing stopped him from bringing an expensive phone to school and dressing in branded clothes, and then just as easily going around the corner to hang out with the chain-smoking street kids over some cheap beer or vodka. Local memes would be born thanks to him. He could blurt out a completely meaningless dumb phrase during a test and the whole class would crack up. When I tried to do the same, the whole class laughed too. And me. He established the class hierarchy, dividing everyone into the cool kids and the losers. No, don't get me wrong, it's not like he just walked around the class and...
In short, cool, loser, cool, loser.
Basically, I don't know how he managed it, but by the end of 2nd grade, it was already clear who was who. There was also a small group of guys who were just background characters. Yours truly, of course, was one of them. This rich kid often pushed ridiculous situations onto one or another guy from our class, and then that guy would get stuck with some funny nickname. Thanks to him, by the last years of school, I ended up with a rather strange nickname, Squid. It's not like it was offensive or anything, but come on, why not just call me by my name, at least when you're asking for homework? Most likely I got the nickname Squid because Yarek and I is that very same Yarek loved watching SpongeBob and would quote it anywhere, anytime. And I did look like Squidward. Boring, tall, a wannabe talent, but in reality a loser and a nerd. There was some truth to that. And with my greasy hair, I looked like I'd just crawled out of the water. But anyway, let's get back to our troublemakers. By the way, this is actually a good time to tell the story of how Yarek and I first met. Back in elementary school, he was pretty much the toughest and most aggressive guy in the class, while I was always skinny and timid. Basically, for the first 2 grades, he bullied and teased me in every way possible. He especially loved this one trick, where he'd stand on my right but pull my left ear. I turned to the left, realized he was actually on the right, turned to the right, and by then he'd already be running off, laughing loudly. Because of that, my ears were always big and red. Before the squid thing, everyone called me Dumbo, Cheburashka, or just ears. Plus, I had blonde hair and a charming smile. Big red ears combined with that appearance made me a perfect target for all sorts of teasing. But let's get to the point. Basically, I wasn't particularly original when it came to pranks, so here's what I did. Yarek usually stood on the right and pulled my left ear, but I caught on and decided that if I stood on his right and pulled his right ear, he'd turn to the left. Meanwhile, having broken the system and finally pranked him, I ride off into the sunset, after which I'll become the top alpha, graduate school with a platinum medal, steal a cute old lady from her husband, invent an interdimensional hyperdirigible, and conquer the entire universe. So I snuck up behind him, already anticipating my awesome prank, when suddenly Yarek jerked back, tripped and crashed right on top of me. Our classmates started cracking up at us. After that, every time I tried to prank him, it always ended up making both of us look like complete idiots. And eventually, Yarek was like,
Dude, come on, let's just be friends or something, I don't know. Seriously, your teasing is just getting really annoying.
oh, and here's another story. Out of all 3 classes, A, B, and V, our class V was of course the most troubled. At every meeting, homeroom session, and community cleanup, all the teachers would say the same thing to us.
You're all crap!
And the weird thing was, both the upper and lower grades in class V at our school were terrible too. The older kids in class V were total maniacs. They simply had no boundaries when it came to the chaos they caused. Basically, they were total troublemakers and completely unhinged. Sometimes their stupidity and greed blinded them so much that they ended up getting themselves into trouble. Remember the sharks from the cartoon Finding Nemo, who would lose their minds at the smell of blood? That's pretty much how it was with those guys. As soon as they sensed an easy score or a chance to assert themselves, they were ready to jump off a balcony for it. I remember once my friend and I were walking to his place in the evening when we suddenly heard some drunken laughter behind us. Personally, from the very first chuckle, I knew exactly who was behind us, so I hinted to my friend that he should pick up the pace. but the drunken laughter kept getting closer and closer. Eventually, 3 thugs from the senior B class caught up with us and of course immediately demanded we pay the tax for being 2 little losers wandering around in the dark who knows where. My friend didn't have any money at all and I only had a few coins on me. I don't remember exactly, but I don't think it even added up to a ruble. I handed this small change to the drunken hooligans, and that's when things got totally crazy.
Hey, Colian, come on, share it, damn it! We worked on it together after all!
But Kolian just stood there, staring at the coins. Apparently in his drunken state, it seemed to him that I'd actually given him a fortune. And then, all of a sudden, he bolted off with his loot. But because of the poor road conditions and his own state of health, after about 10 meters he took a spectacular spill right into a puddle. His buddies rushed over to him yelling, and instead of helping him up, they started kicking him. And within moments, the whole trio was flailing around in the mud. We stared at all this, trying to make sense of what had just happened, but in the end decided that it was simply beyond our understanding. So we just went on our way. Those are my stories for today. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. And also, share in the comments what people call you at school and whether you've ever had to deal with bullies. Or maybe you're the real troublemaker and the whole school is afraid of you? Come on, share your nickname. Let's have a laugh together.